Welcome to today's Chat with the Superintendent webinar. I'm Jackie Tisdale, your moderator for today's discussion on special education and Section 504 SBLC programs. Before we start, let's go over a few logistics. The webinar is 30 minutes, including presentation and Q&A. All microphones are muted except for our presenters. Use your question and chat module to submit questions. And you'll have a chance to provide some feedback afterwards with a brief survey. This webinar is being recorded and it'll be archived on our website. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Superintendent David Alexander.
Well, happy Wednesday to everyone. We are so delighted, those of you that were able to join us, and certainly we welcome those that weren't able to join us during the lunchtime but are actually listening to this post-webinar after from its recorded state. We are delighted today to be able to bring you some more information. Remember, Ascension Parish Schools, we're proud of who we are and what we do, and we're certainly proud to be able to serve this community and its children here. And we're so grateful to our community for their priority around education. And we want to continue to work with our community to provide information about our school system beyond just our letter grade. We're proud to be an A, but today we have the privilege of having our Director of Special Education, Susan Vaughn, and an instructional supervisor who facilitates and leads programs around school building level committee, Section 504, and things of that nature, to share some information with you about those services that we provide to our students. So at this time, I will turn it over to Ms. Vaughn.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Good afternoon, Special Education in Ascension Parish. I want to start out listing some of our statistics. Our total district student enrollment is 22,536. Of that number, 9.8%, approximately 2,219, are students with disabilities. 313 of those are preschoolers, and 222 are students with significant disabilities. The special ed department also supports our gifted and talented students and programs. We have 298 students identified as gifted and 212 students identified as talented. All of these identified students are offered services by the Ascension Parish School System. The district serves all students who have been identified under Bulletin 1508 criteria as having a disability. These disability categories are listed here. They range from autism all the way through visual impairments. Gifted and talented are also considered exceptionalities, and they're listed here also. We have special education teachers who serve and support our students with disabilities. Related services are also provided to address individual needs for specific students. Some of these related service areas are listed below: adaptive PE, assistive technology, transliterators, interpreters, speech therapists, and counselors. The district also employs 200 plus paraprofessionals to support the students individually and in small groups, assisting teachers in the classroom settings. Our special education department is organized to best support the parents, students, and school needs. We have a director of special ed, who is myself. There are two supervisors who serve under me, Terry Tate and Nicole Grimes, and we have 10 coordinators. These coordinators are our direct response team to our schools, and each school has a special ed lead teacher to help support the administration and delivery of services. We have program facilitators for difficult specialized areas that we also support: assistive technology, autism, preschool, parent facilitators, and gifted program facilitators. In special education, we use a lot of acronyms. Two of the most common ones are IDEA, which is Individuals with Disabilities Education Improvement Act, and FAPE, which is Free and Appropriate Education for all students who are identified with a disability. FAPE means that education, instruction, and supports are provided to meet the needs of a student with disability to help them benefit from their education. Our mission statement in our district: every child successful in an ever-changing world. This supports every student is an individual with different strengths and needs. One of the most important things we remember is that a student with disabilities is a general education student first. They are responsible and accountable for all local and state policies around accountability, standards, curriculum, pupil progression, and assessment that apply to all other students. How do we begin the process? Child find, identification. For children ages 3 through 5 who are not in school yet, we screen and identify these children to see if they have any developmental delays. You can see Danielle Penix is our contact for this, and her number is listed. Every school in the district has a school building level SBLC committee that screens and provides interventions for struggling students. Ms. Latasha Johnson is going to be following this presentation to do more details about those programs. In both of these processes, a determination based on data is made regarding the need for further evaluation and testing. If an evaluation is warranted, we have a pupil appraisal team that will conduct a multidisciplinary evaluation to determine if the student is a student with a disability. Once that determination's been made, the next step is to develop an IEP, which is an individual education plan for the student. The IEP team is composed of the student's special ed teacher, regular ed teacher, the school administration, the parent, the student themselves, and any other related service personnel who may be needed to support the student's identified needs. Curriculum decisions are made at these IEP meetings, as well as their support needs, any specialized equipment, access to curriculum accommodations, and placement. Placement refers to the amount and type of services determined to meet the student's identified needs. Least restrictive environment is the consideration of the team to make this placement decision. In Ascension Parish, students are served in placements across a continuum, from regular classes, full-time, to self-contained with a special ed teacher, to blended learning opportunities. Inclusion is where the teacher goes into the classroom with the regular teacher to provide instruction. Resource services can range from a 30-minute pull-out once a week to pull-out during every day of the week for different subject areas to work on specific skill development. Self-contained is when a student has significant discrepancies that have to be addressed by direct, focused instruction by the special ed teacher throughout the day. The district also offers blended learning through our virtual school for students who want to access education through that mode, and we also offer hospital homebound if authorized by a physician. High school is a little bit different. Students are provided services through resource and self-contained settings. Carnegie unit classes are available for all students. The Jumpstart career path has greatly expanded over the last few years. It provides viable options for our students with disabilities to earn a diploma. I know this has been a quick overview of our services in this district. If you have any questions regarding them, anything about students with disabilities, please contact us at LeBlanc Special Services Center, and the number is listed here for you. Thank you. And I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Johnson.
Good afternoon, everyone. As mentioned earlier, I'm the facilitator supervisor for SBLC and 504. Section 504, if the student does not meet the criteria as outlined in Bulletin 1508, the student could meet the criteria as outlined in Section 504. And Section 504 is defined as any person who has a physical or mental impairment which substantially limits one or more major life activities. And major life activities include walking, learning, self-care, speaking, vision, etc. It is the same law that requires buildings to have a ramp for wheelchairs to allow individuals access to buildings. So 504 guarantees equal access to the curriculum, but is not intended to maximize potential. And so if all data indicate a major life activity is impacted, an individual accommodation plan, which is an IAP, can be developed and implemented for the student. And with accommodation decisions are made by the committee at the meeting, and accommodations are based on data which support students' needs, which will provide them equal access to the curriculum. So what is SBLC? SBLC is another acronym, but it stands for School Building Level Committee. Each campus has a committee of individuals to conduct assessments and referral activities. And the committee includes the principal or designee, classroom teacher most familiar with the student, and the SBLC facilitator. The parent or guardian is invited and a member of the SBLC committee, and the committee membership may change according to the needs of the child. So how do we get data to determine if there is a disabling condition that impacts a major life activity? Common data sources we use are grades, attendance records, health information, test scores, discipline referrals. The ultimate goal of SBLC is to work as a team with the parent to prevent failure and make all students successful learners. To ensure that our students are successful, we follow a research-based process known as response to intervention. Response to intervention is not a program or a book, but it's a process that we engage in collectively to help students succeed. Again, the goal is to prevent failure and make all students successful learners. When we provide or we respond, our interventions are typically focused in ELA, math, and behavior. So when we think about response to intervention, we think about a triangle, and the base of the triangle is the foundation. Every student in Ascension Parish has access and receives high-quality core instruction utilizing a research-based curriculum. In addition to high-quality core curriculum, we also use universal assessment, which we used to use in the past, DIBELS, but now we use FAST to identify students who may be at risk. So when we look at the universal screener assessment and core instruction, and we've identified students who may need further support, that's when we decide what is the appropriate intervention for the student, and we move into the second phase of the tier, or tier 2. And we continue with those interventions and closely monitor the students to see how they're responding to the intervention. And then we meet to discuss next steps. Time and frequency are very important in the response to intervention process because we have to provide adequate time with the appropriate intervention to determine if students are responding to the intervention. Throughout the data collection process, parents are notified about students' progress. Again, our goal is to prevent failure and make sure all students are successful learners by providing interventions and collecting ongoing data to make meaningful decisions for students. The essential components of our RTI process: we monitor students' progress in the general curriculum using universal assessments. We monitor how students respond to the intervention by using multiple data points, and we choose the appropriate intervention to address student needs, and throughout the process, communicating with parents. So what happens if my child does not show improvement? At the end of the response to intervention process, the SBLC committee will meet to analyze the multiple data points to determine which of the following options are appropriate. If the students are making adequate progress, we may decide to conduct no further action. We may continue the current interventions and progress monitor. We may conduct additional interventions through RTI, conduct a 504 evaluation, or refer to pupil appraiser for special education evaluation. What can I do as a parent? It is extremely important your child attends school every day. You limit the number of tardies in check-in and check-outs, that there's frequent communication between you and your child's teacher. You communicate any family changes with your child's teacher. If there's any change in medical conditions or updates, you communicate with your child's teacher and celebrate each success, no matter how small, with your child. If you have any questions regarding our SBLC 504 services, please contact your child's teacher or the SBLC facilitator at your child's school. In addition, we have included the link to our publications where you can access the brochures to find out more information about SBLC and 504. Thank you.
Okay, I think now we're ready for our Q&A portion of our session. There's a lot of information packed into a short amount of time, so I want to remind all of our attendees that if you would like to submit a question, use your question chat window and you can type those questions so that I can address those to the panelists. Our first question is, will a doctor's diagnosis automatically qualify my child for services?
For special education, no. We have strict criteria developed by the State Department for each exceptionality that is addressed under the federal law. So we take that into consideration. If it's a medical diagnosis, like a child has sickle cell anemia or cystic fibrosis, then the child may have a medical condition that will warrant that because it's interfering with their learning. 504 may be a little bit different.
Yes, and for us, we look at each individual medical diagnosis to determine if it impacts a major life activity. So if you have a medical diagnosis, a documented medical diagnosis, bring it to your SBLC facilitator, and she will follow up with you to determine and meet with you to determine what are the next steps.
All right, our next question is, do all school districts offer the same special education services?
All districts are obligated under federal law to serve students identified as special education. The type of services, the continuum of where they're offered and what's developed is different district to district depending on their facilities and what's there.
The next question is, how do private providers for, we've seen several private providers coming up offering autism services. How does that work with the school system? Is there a partnership with the school system, or is that a completely separate service?
It's a completely separate service. The school system, once the child enrolls in our school, we are accountable for providing an instructional program for that child. We cannot give up our instructional time for private providers to come in and do services during the day. If your child needs speech therapy, we will provide that. They need occupational therapy, and that's denoted on the IEP. We provide that here. So any services that's determined on the IEP that the child needs, we offer here in the district, in the school system.
Our next question, are special education students measured the same academically as non-special education students?
Yes, if you remember in the presentation several years ago when IDEA was reauthorized, that was one of the things that President Bush was very insistent about, that every student is a general ed student first, and then if they've been identified as special ed, they need extra supports. But they are accountable and responsible for all state and local accountability measures, assessment measures. We can offer accommodations if the disabling condition warrants it, but they are responsible for the curriculum. There's one set of standards for all students.
Okay. I want to remind our attendees we have a few minutes left, so to please get your questions in. Our next question is, if a child has an IEP and receives certain accommodations already and is still struggling in a subject, are there options as a parent to help the child further along to improve outside of private tutoring?
The schools and teachers can always go back and review the IEP to see if what's on there denoted for the student is appropriate. But there's always a variety of reasons why the student may be struggling. It may not be that they need more accommodations. It may just need a different intervention. So we try to look at all of those variables that may be out there.
And it's the same for a 504 student. In the presentation, you did hear me mention multiple data sources. So when looking at what's the appropriate accommodation to best suit the student's need, we do pull in multiple data sources to make decisions about appropriate accommodations.
Our next question, do any schools in Ascension offer...
Yes. I just wanted to expand on that. If a parent feels like their child is, special education services, nor 504 guarantees a child will pass because there's lots of variables out there that's involved in that. But if they're still struggling, their first thing would be to go talk to that classroom teacher and the special ed teacher, examine what's in the IEP, what kind of services are being provided, and do we need to make any changes or adjustments in that program to maybe better address what's going on.
All right, thank you. So our next question, do any schools in Ascension offer gluten-free meals for those on 504 with that disability?
If the parent has the documentation, if they would bring it to the school, the SBLC facilitator will look at the documentation and get with the appropriate personnel to make the best decision for the child.
And Jackie, I did want to expand on that too. I went and spent a day at Central Primary's cafeteria and actually witnessed their food service preparation, doing some special food preparation for a special needs student. So they did take some, special measures in addressing that particular disability. Our next question, do you offer ABA therapy for children diagnosed with autism? And if not, can the child's instructional time be shortened to allow the child to attend ABA at an outside facility?
We have autism facilitators in our district who work with our teachers. The teachers have been trained in ABA techniques and lots of other different intervention techniques that work well with our autistic children. So we are not shortening our instructional day because we use an eclectic approach with our students, and so we're not dismissing them. We deliver the services that we are addressing on the IEP.
Well, that is actually all the questions that have been submitted. So if our panelists and our superintendent have any closing comments?
Ms. Vaughn, Ms. Johnson, anything to close?
We will do what's best for children. And if there are any questions or anything that we can do, just contact the facilitator at your child's school, as mentioned earlier, or contact me, and we can meet and discuss any further concerns or questions that you may have.
Right. And I second that. Our department, like I said, we have coordinators, supervisors, lead teachers at the schools. We try to keep open lines of communications because your child's education is very important to us, and it's an ever-changing line of progress. So we want to move forward. We want the best for our students. So make sure you're communicating what the issues are, and we'll do our best to try to address them. Thank you.
Well, I would just like to say thank you to all of you that were able to join us. And again, thank you to those of you that would listen to this as a recorded webinar. We appreciate your engagement with Ascension Parish Schools to help understand or to gain understanding about the services that we offer, the details about those services that we provide to our students and our community, and it's just to help to get to know us better. We are that is the purpose of these webinars. We'll continue to be hosting webinars throughout the course of this school year and next. So I want to thank Ms. Vaughn and Ms. Johnson for taking the time to be with us today, and I certainly want to thank them both publicly here for their service and leadership in what they do for students and what they do for schools to support students. And with that, I want to remind all parents that certainly we need to hear from you and want to hear from you when you have a concern about your child's progress, their learning, or what have you. Let me remind you that the first contact is always to your school building, and to give the principal of that school building an opportunity to work with you to help you with your concern or problem or challenge that you have with your child. Every one of our principals, their heart is to support children and to support teachers in their efforts to support children. So they want to partner with you, they want to develop a relationship with you, and they want to help solve problems with you. So please give them your first opportunity to intervene. And if you're not satisfied with their decision or their approach, please don't think that's personal. We welcome you to bring your concerns to us at the district level, first the district directors, and then of course the superintendent's office, because at the end of the day, we all have the same goal, and that is that our children in Ascension Parish have an opportunity to experience education from 3-year-olds to 19-year-olds, so that they all have the best opportunity they can have to be successful, productive, and competitive in a world as adults, and more than anything else, to be active and to be a contributor to their community one day. Again, thanks for joining us. We appreciate you guys.
Just want to let you know that we have our next Chat with the Superintendent webinar will be on April 25th, again at 12:30 p.m. The topics for that webinar will be early childhood, early college, and distance learning. And as soon as we conclude this webinar here, you will have a brief survey pop up. Please take 2 minutes to click on that. It helps give us feedback and helps shape us in forming topics for you in the future. Have a great afternoon.